back to your host, Jim Freed.
We've got a great show, a bunch of experts. I'm not one of them, so we're going to get right to it. And I know Alan Garfinkel's been having a little problem with his phone. He's on the road today. Alan, are you able to hear us?
Well, Jim, thank you very much for having me on the show. Sorry we had a little technical difficulty. We've been monitoring the storms around the country, both in terms of the wildfires and the hurricane that's, pending down the southwestern part of the country. Thank you so much for having me on the show with two, nationally renowned guys as well. Reagan and Phil, I've known them and known of their reputation for years and years. My law firm and I particularly have been doing this type of disaster recovery, obtaining insurance recovery benefits for over 30 years. I've been designated a super lawyer on insurance coverage. I'm an AB-rated lawyer, which is the highest national ranking. And really all I've done in terms of my career is devoted myself to helping community associations throughout the country in recovering, from the insurance company, whether it's from construction defect or more specifically from disaster. We've really helped out, tens of thousands of folks throughout the years. So thank you so much for allowing me to be on the show and kind of give my perspective of what to expect before, during, and after a storm as a result of the insurance contracts that folks have signed.
Thank you so much, Alan, for being here. Your insights are going to be critical because a lot of the creative financing that goes on in this sector comes from the insurance policy.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. I've been handling disaster claims in South Florida since Hurricane Andrew back in 1992 and all the storms in between. And the very, very first thing that people are considered thinking of, really there's three things that folks think about. Number one is, oh my God, my roof is leaking, the windows are out, I got to get some tarps on, or I need to get some security for my building. And then the third thing is, how do I pay for this stuff? Where do I deep in? Do I go into my reserves? Who writes the checks? It's very, very much of a scampering situation. And so what I'm here to do, along with Reagan and Phil, who are actually the providers, these are the experts that actually do those things. Phil is there to put the roof back on your head. Reagan is there to make sure that the building is secure. The fact is that the reality is that, when windows are broken, when the doors are not there, security can be compromised. And the first thing that, people have to be cognizant of is their personal welfare, their personal safety. And so, I can't tell you how many times I've arrived on scenes where, the building is compromised. And so there are the people. And so I will tell you that, having Reagan, pre-certified and pre-vetted and on the speed dial in the event, God forbid, something happens where, the security of the building is compromised, and having Phil available on speed dial after you vet him, making sure that credentials line up, or having someone in place to make sure they can go out there and secure the envelope of the building. Because frankly, under the law, the homeowner, whether it's a community association, a condo, apartment building, a convention center, everybody under the law has a duty to mitigate the damages, meaning you have the responsibility to not let, oh, geez, I have insurance, and so we're just going to let the water continue to pile in. That's the first two things. The third thing is, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't make a claim because my insurance rates will go up. I will go into later about why that's a fallacy, but the important thing is to vet out folks that are trusted, vendors beforehand. And I can personally attest for Reagan and Phil, who have not just local South Florida reputations, but national reputations.
Bill, help me understand what people should be doing before the warnings go up.
All right. So, and Alan really touched on it is, owners are required to make sure that they minimize the level of damage that could potentially hit their assets. The pre-assessment, making sure that you document the precondition of your physical asset is critically important.
Yeah.
It tells the story. It's able to tell the story afterwards of, hey, this is what it was, and here it is now.
what Phil just said perhaps right now is the most important thing. It's perhaps more important in terms of a pre-disaster situation. He hit the nail on the head. The fact is that on every single situation, when there's damage after the storm, in every situation, how on earth does the insurance company have an idea what was there before and what was there after? And so I will tell you, the insurance companies give themselves the benefit of the doubt every single time. And by having a relationship with someone like Phil and Kent Security, but Phil will go out there and do a pre-assessment for free. He'll go out there and be able to say, hey, look, this is what the roof is like. This is where it is right now. And it's like setting kind of a baseline. This is where we are as of August 25th or, 2020. And if a storm hits like, any of the storms that hit in October or November or September over the years, hurricane season goes through November, and we've had some gigantic storms. And in every single situation, every single time, the insurance company either blames one, excessive wear and tear, and so it's your fault and you pay for it because you didn't properly maintain, or B, the damage was there beforehand. And if you allow Phil to go out there and do a pre-assessment and kind of give a baseline of where the roof is, where the envelope is, where the structure for wind-driven rains are, that's really, really critical, because then it's not even up to dispute, because Phil sends his people up on the roof. He documents everything. He documents the windows. He documents if there's any cracks in the building. He documents the conditions of the balconies. And so getting these relationships with like tree removers, financiers, and call up your insurance agent right now. Make sure, because once there's a storm heading your way, it's on lockdown. Make sure you have the coverage that you believe that you have. Make sure you have the deductible that you believe that you think you have, rather than being surprised. And then get really trusted contractors that you can call on speed dial. God forbid, your building or your commercial structure or your home gets nailed. That's what you got to do. Because frankly, if you have those folks on speed dial now and you have a relationship with now, that's what Kent Security was talking about. If you have these relationships now, look, every single year, I don't like to pay, for example, for a service contract with my, AC company. I don't like it. I don't like having to pay the extra money. I don't like it. But the fact is that when my AC blows out, I want them there. And that gives me priority where I'm first in queue. And so that's what Kent Security is talking about being, having the relationship and vetting the contractors before the shenanigans, before the hooligans come in that want to do all sorts of things. That, oh my gosh, we'll do A, B, and C if we'll put on a blue tarp on. That's why you want to have relationships with national guys like Jim has vetted on his show. It's very, very important that you act now. That's what you do before. That's what really, frankly, the responsibility is of the boards of directors right now. That's your fiduciary duty, to preserve and protect the property.
Yeah, Alan, you're nailing it down really solidly, because it's the synergy between the security side and the pre-assessment side works hand in hand, where you want to be able to look at it and look at those areas from the security side on the hardening side. How do I harden my facility so when it does get damaged, I've got a suspender belt approach to dealing with my property?
I was terrified after my Hurricane Irma when I went up to my apartment and it was all flooded, and I just started pulling out the carpet that I was doing the wrong thing. I wasn't, was I, Alan?
Absolutely not. No, you did the right thing. And I'm just thinking about the last time, the Gulf was facing down these hurricanes, and people forget, but actually the last time the hurricanes hit down there and in a devastating fashion, and the guys that I'm on the phone were all there, was the devastation that Charlie Jean Francis caused in 2005. And so taking the preparation now of getting the pre-vetting of the vendors is absolutely critical. Having a pre-assessment to get a baseline of what your envelope looks like by a professional, a nationally renowned forensic contractor that can actually distinguish between, what was caused by what was the fault of maintenance, what was the cause of settling, what was the cause by wind-driven rain, what was the cause by the hail, what was caused by a tornado, and then what Reagan was talking about of the additional complication of COVID. I mean, the fact is that look, whether in what stage you believe it or not, the fact is that your neighbors, are concerned, are extra concerned, and providers are extra concerned. So that's why it's really, really key to get out in front now. One, make sure you have your insurance in place. One, make sure you don't want to buy additional insurance when the storm is in the sea, because you won't be able to get anything. So call up your agent right now, find out what you have them give you an email and send them your deck sheet, and then interview nationally, renowned folks like Reagan at Kent Security and Phil with, how many people do you know that are forensic construction experts? Get to know those folks now.
Now, Alan, on this call, we've been referring to an insurance policy, but the reason that somebody needs a lawyer to review it and not an insurance agent is because it's really a contract, right?
Yeah, it's really funny because, just like folks that aren't doctors, it's illegal to practice medicine if you're not, a licensed, doctor or a nurse practitioner or someone with a license. It's the same way, frankly, with insurance contracts. Those complicated policies, which is a great marketing tool, but it's a contract. And frankly, in the event, God forbid, the insurance company says, your claim, you know what? It just happens to be under the deductible. Or, you know what? All the damage that you have really is because of, you failed to maintain. The fact is that we've all been indoctrinated about being scared about making a quote unquote claim under a policy. And the rules are different, guys, when we're talking about a national disaster. They're not allowed, your insurance, typically if you're, one of the 60,000 community associations just in Florida, and look, there's over 100 million people in the United States that are part of residential community associations. Okay? And typically their biggest expense is the insurance quote unquote policy for wind-driven rains and liability. And the fact is that, Jim, you're exactly right. It's not a policy. It's a contract. And frankly, if there's a dispute, you don't sue under a policy. You have to attach, the quote unquote policy. It's a contract. It's a breach of contract. And so the best way to establish, because what happens is that systematically, large insurance companies have a duty to pay out the most money to their insured, to the insurers. But what happens is they pay out the most money to their shareholders. So getting the security lined up to secure the building, making sure you have the right insurance in place, and having a contractor lined up that specializes in this type of stuff. It's not just a friend of a board member, okay? It's not just, this person that knows somebody. It's someone that has real expertise in these damage disaster claims. It's a whole different niche. And so working with someone that has, decades and years of experience and reputational, risk of being in the industry for 1 decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, that have gone out to these storms, not only in Florida, but across the nation, in Texas, in California, in Ohio, in Louisiana. And so you want to establish relationships with, and that's one of the benefits of this show. You know, Jim has taken the time to vet out folks because it's his reputation at stake.
Unfortunately, I'm really educated about this because of personal experience. I got whipped by Hurricane Irma. My building's still under reconstruction. Everybody who follows me knows the hell that I've been through all of it. But one of the nuances that I found out was that you could keep going back for more with the insurance company if you had legitimate reasons to keep the claim open. That's not really widely known, is it, Alan?
Yeah, it's really surprising because most people think that, you know, we've been conditioned over, you know, billions of dollars of insurance propaganda that, you know, if you collect a check from the insurance company, it's done. It's one check and you're out. But that's just the opposite. Because remember, these contracts, you know, these insurance contracts, the insurance company has an obligation to treat you fairly and in good faith. And the fact is that, as you know, as probably Phil knows better than anybody, you know, once you start peeling the layers back of the onion of a house, or the onion of a building, an onion of a shopping center, an onion of a church, onion of a shopping mall, you'll see, you know, what the sickness that water causes to buildings, particularly in the South. You know, heat and water cause mold, they cause fungus, and it really almost looks like a black lung. And so the point that I'm saying about what you're saying is, hey, look, we need a check for the roof. We need a check for, you know, emergency protection in terms of just the security for the building. You know, that's covered, for example, under Kent Security. You know, that's covered. All of a sudden, we have to have extra security to secure the outside of the building or the buildings. You know, some of our, you know, we have communities that have, for example, 30,000 people, buildings upon buildings upon buildings and buildings, and those have to be secured. And so having a relationship with a security company is critical, and that's paid by the insurance company.
So, Alan, let's make this the close. Let's look overview of everything, and what are some real fine points people need to focus on?
Okay, well, number one, right now, during hurricane season and during, frankly, just the building maintenance, contact your insurance company, contact your insurance agent. Make sure that you have what you in layman's terms, what you think you have. Hey, what's my deductible? What's going to be my out-of-pocket, number one? Number two is understand that in the event of a national emergency, don't be so frozen. Don't be scared. Don't be having, you know, alligator arms regarding calling up your insurance agent and making a claim. They've terrified us in terms of, oh my gosh, they're going to drop me. They're going to raise my rates like they would in a car accident. It doesn't happen. It can't happen because the state regulators, in the event of a national or state emergency, they have to apply the same increases, and there will be increases, but it'll apply for folks that make a claim or don't make a claim. That's number one. So it's important to understand that, look, you have a contract in place, and they can't discriminate against you whether you make a claim or don't make a claim. But there's going to be many folks that don't make a claim in fear because the insurance company has been successful in conditioning all of us that if we make a claim, our insurance rates are going to go up or we're going to be dropped. Can't happen, you know, in the event of a national disaster, in the event of a hurricane. That's number one. Number two is the most important thing. Jim is doing an incredible service, pre-vetting folks, not just recommended by, you know, a property manager that has a relationship. These are folks that have national reputations that, you know, Jim is staking his reputation on. I know of these guys' reputations, and they have national reputations. And you're going to need folks that it's not just, you know, the security and the folks that can put a roof over your head or a blue tarp over your head. It's also the folks that, you know, will remove trees from your entrance. Make those relationships with those folks now. Make those relationships and ensure you have AC. You know, make sure, like Reagan was saying, make sure that there is, you know, propane in the generators to make sure that, you know, that folks have air conditioning. So taking these pre-precaution steps is really critical. And then finally, let me just say that it doesn't hurt to get a checkup on the envelope of the building. And what my understanding is that, you know, what Phil has done in the past nationally is he has provided, you know, he has provided, checkups on where your building is. And so where your building is now. So in the event someone says, hey, look, this was caused by your failure to maintain the property, Phil can say, look, I have evidence. I have pictures. I've done a report. It wasn't like this before the storm. And so therefore it's your responsibility. So having those relationships now, including having a plan to contact your insurance agent and making a claim, and God forbid, understanding you have something in your budget to pay for your deductible. Okay. And that's where Jim can come in terms of providing, a line of credit or a bridge loan or something to, if your line of credit is if your deductible is $250,000, what is it? Find out what your deductible is now and make sure, everybody wants the cheapest rate of coverage, but what is your tolerance? What is your association? What is your apartment building? What is your church's tolerance to pay out of pocket in the event of a storm? Make that decision and make that call now. And you can make for a few dollars more. It'd be surprising to drop your deductible from $250,000 to $100,000 or whatever your pain tolerance is for your community, your apartment building, your church or shopping center or convention center. Have an understanding of what you're going to have to pay out of pocket, and then have those funds lined up. That's where Jim can help. So, Jim, I want to thank you very, very much. And Reagan and I have put on seminars across the country. Actually, I know in Florida to other community associations. And so, thank you very much for allowing us to speak. It's certainly my privilege and honor to present with folks like Phil and Reagan. So, thank you very, very much, Jim.
How do people get a hold of super lawyer Alan Garfinkel?
Look, the most important folks that are on the show are obviously folks that are going to put a roof back on your head, that gives you the security of not getting wet and making sure your property is covered. And so that's why I would strongly recommend you following up with Phil and his team. There are contractors or folks that have Home Depot trucks. There are very, very few that are specialized in actually forensic, construction and disaster recovery. And the second person you'll probably likely call is, again, to secure the envelope, secure the building is Kent Security. So people find me. I don't advertise. I just, what I do is I struggle to do what you do all the time, Jim, and that's vet people, including like that woman that you recommended that was on the phone, Rebecca. She's fantastic in terms of materials. And so it really takes time, when you've been working so hard for 30 or 40 years, it takes, 30 years to build a reputation, 20 minutes to ruin it. And these guys have managed to maintain the reputation for decades. So thank you very, very much for allowing me the honor of addressing, speaking with this esteemed panel. So thank you very, very much for your time, Jim. Thank you.
It's my absolute pleasure, Alan. You're always a gracious guest.